Welcome to the Workbook Statistics, this unit where I'm going to talk about box plots and the construction of these box plots. Box plot, more or less, is just this illustration. It's a box, lower, upper boundary of the box, with antennas going upwards and downwards. But how do we get these, box plots, and what do they actually illustrate? Well, that can easily be explained with the minimum, the smallest value of this box plot being the minimum of the data set. So being this is the smallest value represented in our sample. In the same context, the upper part, the upper whisker or antenna, is given via the maximum, the largest value in our data set, in our sample. Then we have the box. The box is defined by the lower and upper quartile, which is just the first or third quartile, or in other words, the 25% percentile or quantile and the 75% or percentile, quantile, however you want to call this. So this means that the lower antenna covers the smallest 25%, the upper antenna covers the largest 25%, and the box covers the middle 50%. Now we have this line in the middle of the box. That's our median or second quartile. So in other words, this upper part in the box are 25% as well. This part of the box is also 25%. So the median splits up the box in two evenly sized, spaced parts as well. This gives us a good idea how data is actually distributed. If we have a relatively small box, means we have the core values which are pretty close to the mean or the median. So there's not a lot of dispersion in the middle values. If we have large antennas, this means we have quite severe outliers. However, if the antennas are relatively small, meaning there aren't really as severe outliers as one might suspect. So the antennas tell us something about outliers. The box, or the box plot in general, tells us something about the distribution. That's why we can also use the box plot, or these statistics on the right, to get some, insight into the dispersion of the data. For example, the height of the box, so the difference between upper and lower quartile, that's nothing else than the interquartile range. And the height of the box plot itself, that's the range. So that's two informations we can additionally get from this box plot. So it tells us something about maximum, minimum, about first, second and third quartile, tells us something about the range and the interquartile range. So it's actually a pretty neat tool. So I illustrated this going upwards, so from lower to upper part. There are some illustrations where it's actually flipped or rotated by 90 degrees. Personally, I wouldn't recommend this because this is much more intuitive, with the minimum being lower part, maximum being the upper part and not to the left or the right. Also, this is just one version of possible box plot designs. There are other things. For example, if you use SPSS, they still construct the box in the same way, but the antennas are not defined via a maximum and minimum. Here, they just more or less take this distance and then go like 1, 2.5 times. So they would make a cut here. And then I would say all the values which are situated in this area here, those are outliers. So there's different version where you can use box plots also to illustrate, do I have outliers? Do I have significant outliers? But that's a different story. And if you use a box plot like that, there's also not the possibility given that you can define the range via the box plot itself. Interquartile range would still work, but not this way. Then the final comment, it's not done here, but in some cases you find a dot somewhere in the box usually. If there's an additional dot, the dot in most cases describes the mean. So if you want to include a mean as well, we can put a dot somewhere inside, in some cases even outside the box plot. This would also help us to distinguish, in comparison with the median, whether we have rightwards or leftwards skewed data. So a box plot is actually a really insightful tool to illustrate your data and its distribution. And well, that's then everything there is on box plots. I hope you enjoyed this session. I say goodbye and see you next time.